Hello, my name is Lars Andersen. I have a little bit of a different background from the most people who work as consultants or lawyers or something like that. And I will tell you a little about blockchain technology and distributed ledger technology in different industries, the different types I will go through very quickly, and tell the pros and cons of it and how some people don't like this technology. Then I will tell about how it's used in business development for innovation, and I will come with some practical examples for how it can be the missing link, and how to make disruptive products, not just increasing the value of something with 5% or 10%, but being disruptive. My background is management and IT from Aarhus University in Denmark, then as a commercial lawyer, and then I did some blockchain PhD courses. And I have a practical background from software, then as a business lawyer, and then as a developer. So I tried different sides of being on the different, having different challenges. Blockchain technology is used for many, many things, and I won't go through anything of all this, just explaining that the banking, the financial part, the FinTech part is just one of these many possibilities for blockchain technology to be used. Blockchain is a technology, and it's a database which is shared. The good thing with the blockchain is that the database cannot be changed. Opposite to normal databases, the old style. The cryptocurrencies, where we all know the Bitcoin, that is one of the things that the blockchain technology is used for. There's several different good things and bad things about cryptocurrencies, and you have to think about cryptocurrencies as a substitute for a payment. It's not money, but it's a substitute. Just like diamonds. Diamonds they have a value, but you cannot eat them. But it has a value because somebody else wants it. And that is also the same thing with Bitcoins. Somebody else wants it. But it has no value. There's no gold behind or diamonds behind or anything else. We have centralized and distributed ledgers. And the normal way to trade assets is through a clearinghouse. That's a centralized technology. The distributed technology is where you have copies of everything, everywhere, in each computer, in the network, saying, this here is true. It's true that this here is a microphone. And if somebody else is telling this is not a microphone, then the rest of you will probably say, you're wrong. It is a microphone. It works like a microphone, it looks like a microphone, so therefore it is a microphone. If I said this was a Bitcoin, and everybody agreed it was a Bitcoin, then we could call it a Bitcoin. And the distributed ledger is where you have all an opinion in your own copy of your database, so you can approve things or disapprove automatically. Then we have the traditional ledgers, where only one can say this is the truth. But if we have many copies, it can be to only a part of you, or it could be to everyone. So everyone can go in and get a copy. Like if we're saying a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin, it has a value because somebody wants it. Some people don't like this distributed ledger because if you're a government, you cannot control your macro politics. How to control how many bitcoins there are. Of course, bitcoins, you know, there's a maximum of 21 million. It will be mined through the next years. So that is fixed. It is a rare asset, just like a diamond. You cannot get out and say, oh, now we make the double amount of diamonds or bitcoins, because that's a technology for a bitcoin. But you have many other coins, and you can make a new coin. And if somebody wants it, it has a value. Using distributed ledger technology, then we have a problem with money laundering, with illegal use, because it cannot be traded the same way as bank-to-bank transfers. That is also one of the reasons why the central banks are not very keen of bitcoins. There's also legal problems. And at this time, we do not have sufficient laws. That's really a problem, because the people who make the laws, they do not know how to predict what happens in the future. Maybe they can say, okay, we had a problem here, we make a law against it. But that is looking backwards. So one of the problems is, if the servers are everywhere, which country's law should we use to say if something is legal or illegal? If you have a Bitcoin node here in Russia, is it Russian law, or is it European law, or is it Chinese law, or somewhere else? It's difficult. And then to make a decision, to make a deal, you need to have a will that you want to make the deal. But can a computer really have a will to do something by its own? Can it think, I want to do this? When we have smart contracts, it is when you do a binding deal with a smart contract, can a smart contract do another deal with another smart contract? Then we have another problem. Who is then making the deal? Who is taking the decision? And again, which law should we use if they misunderstand each other? Maybe because of language problems. Then we have consumer protection. Who can you call if something is not working as expected? What if it contains illegal material? That is one of the problems. If you put, let's say, child porn into a smart contract, who is then responsible? And how to erase it again? One of the problems is that these things have to be erased after a certain amount of time due to at least the European laws nowadays. So who's responsible? Is it the one who makes the smart contracts? Is it the one who stores the smart contracts? And if everybody have a node, a computer, having a copy of it, and you get a copy of something with illegal material in it, it could be a wrong statement, it could be child porn, or it could be something else that you don't want. But you get it by coincidence because you don't know. Are you then reliable for this illegal material? And some other people like it for the same reasons. A little about cryptocurrencies. I'll come to the point afterwards here. Cryptocurrencies, there's a lot of volatility in it. It goes up, it goes down, and it continues like that. But can you be sure it continues up? No, of course you can't. So nobody can predict exactly what will happen. And how do we protect each other, protect the customers for the use of this? The Bitcoin is, it has only one purpose: transfer a value from A to B. And if you want it, it's good. If it's transferred, it's done. And it cannot go wrong because it's done. So you cannot take it back unless the receiver send it back to you as a new transaction. The smart contracts are different because then you can put something which should happen before it is carried out. You could put a date on and say, this transfer will happen if the date is 1st of January, or if the balance in my wallet is so and so. Then it will happen. And that's where you can program a smart wallet. To understand, now it's becoming a little more technical, the reason why it is immutable and why it is not easy to hack it is because there's a hash code, a public key and a private key to it, and you cannot go backwards in that system here. The hash code is normally 250 letters long. Even if your document is a 100-page long document, a contract where you buy and sell a whole company or an oil tanker or something else. So therefore, you cannot just change it by changing one single number, then it's completely different. So now the interesting thing, where should blockchain be used? It should be used only for, it should not be used for doing a new kind of database, but it should be used for when there should be consensus between several parties. When you need to be secure that the transaction has taken place. When you need the automatic execution of something, the smart contract. When you need the audit or reporting part, which can be open or it can be locked, depending on your the technology you use. And then when people do not trust each other, and in a business to business, nobody trusts each other, but they believe what is carried out when it's final, when it's done. So in the FinTech industry, for instance, a letter of credit. When you buy a good which has to be transferred, then your bank should make a document for securing the payment. Then you should be sure that the material is delivered, it's sent on a boat or something else. You have a lot of different documents to be filled out. You have to feel safe with the people you are trading with. Can you trust them? Can you trust their bank? Can you trust the transporter? Can you trust, there's a lot of things. By doing that automatically and in a safe way, where you can be sure that if I have this contract with you, then it is okay, everything is okay, it's automatically done, then we can speed up the process. And that's where we make the innovation. Because normally that process here can take 7 days, and we can take 90% off and make it very quickly. That's just one example. Let's take a use case here. If some companies do it in 2 weeks, the good ones can do it in 2 days. And a few one can do it in 2 hours if they have all the paperwork in place and if they have done the first one and now they want to do the second one. If a blockchain server could do the same thing in 2 minutes, then we have a disruptive innovation. And normally you have to look at things in a different way. You don't do it just a little bit better. You can automate it or you can do it differently. And that's where we put blockchain technology into what we see every day, everywhere. So we add something to create something new. In this example here, I will show you that the blockchain server can do it in 2 minutes. It's a disruptive way of making invoice financing. We use invoice financing and all the banks can do it. It's not a big deal. Invoice financing, yeah. Go to a bank, you can do it. If your credibility is good enough, then you can get a loan. Pledge your house, pledge your whatever you have, and then you can get a loan. But what if you can't do that? Look at the pain people are having by solving that simple little problem. Yeah, pledging some more things is a possibility, but that is not real innovation. To do real innovation, you have to turn it all around to something else and do it differently, or add something. I have an example here where we say, we have an invoice here on the table, so now I take a picture of the invoice with my phone. The picture uploads to the blockchain server who do OCR, character recognition, checks who are the parties, which company numbers do they have, then check in a database saying, okay, who has the signatory rights for that company? Okay, it's the right person. Then they are identified by a digital signature. Almost all countries have digital signatures which can approve who is actually approving this contract. Then we take the invoice, 100 euro or rubles, and put it in here. Then we add financing, we add insurance, and we add some legal documents. Okay, where do we get the financing from? Not from the banks. I don't want to take anything from the big banks. It's not innovation to take anything, because then they will lose it. No, let the oil tankers sail. We do not have to change that. It will go like it did with Kodak, who did pictures the old way. Now we have digital cameras. It's a completely different thing. But it's still a picture. The old banks, they will just continue. And we will not take anything from them. But we will make it different, because money is stored in the banks. And if you can make a safe investment, then it is very cheap. And the money stored in the banks can only be used for that, for the funds. So they will not lend you money if you don't have any money. So if you're a little company who are doing construction work and you have 5 employees, then you're not getting a big loan from a bank. But in the other end, when you build a house, there's somebody who has to use the house. There's probably a financing behind it when it's done. But it's not done yet if you're just started. So the big company who do the construction part, they have a historic credibility through many years perhaps. So why don't we just look at them? Because they have to pay it in the end. So what we do is actually asking the insurance company, do you want to take the risk for the big company to fail? Yeah, it's no problem. They never fail. They've not done that in 50 years, so they will not fail. So therefore, it's cheap to make an insurance. So we add the insurance. And because we have the insurance and we have the smart contract in the blockchain server, then it's a secure transaction. And a secure transaction with the right legal documents in the smart contract and the insurance, we will get the cheap financing from the people who have the money in the bank, getting almost close to 0% interest. So now they can invest in that 3 months period from when you start building a house till it's delivered and financed for the next 30 years. So my point here is actually the blockchain server makes it secure because you can trust it. The transaction is done when it's done. It is dependent on exactly what you write. So if you have that one, you can actually say here, it can be done. Here we added something extra because we said, if you make an invoice, if you build a wall and send an invoice to somebody, 30 days, they have to pay. So what if the wall is not straight? it is like that and should be like that. Then of course you will say, we will not pay the invoice. So we add another thing into this thing here. We say the invoice will still be 20% invoice. So you can say it is not done correctly. But the 80%, since we have the secure server here, the 80% of the invoice is converted to a debt instrument. And that debt instrument is the one we insure and get financed. And therefore we can offer 90 days of credit to the one who should pay. So the big one should not pay after 30 days because the house is not finished yet. So he will get 2 months extra credit for free. So we give him something. The small one can say, okay, I want my money now. So when I have my invoice, I've just issued the invoice. It says 30 days. Then we say, okay, if you approve that the work is done, then you get 90 days of credit. And we take a picture here, confirm, and then 2 minutes later, everything is done, credit check and everything, and the money is in your account. Rubles, dollars, or even bitcoins. So that is a way of adding something, using the technology. Then you have a new product. And then you can do it in 2 minutes instead of 2 weeks. So what I want to tell is actually that you have to think differently. You have to go backwards. Look at what is the pain the customer has right now and how to solve that. Not by using a normal bank, but by making a new product, a product innovation. Then you have something new. I'll show you a short presentation if it works here. Doesn't work here. Yeah. And I have no sound on it. Right? Okay. There should be sound on. No. Sorry, it looks like the sound is not working. So I will continue here. Of course, when this transaction is made, there's a small fee to be paid for making that finance. You cannot get anywhere else. So the one who is having his 5 employees who needs to be paid the salary at the end of the month, he's willing to pay a higher amount for getting the money right now and not in 30 days or even longer. So be sure to make a product which is needed. Then I will say there's a lot of use cases, and I won't go through any more right now, but it's already used in a lot of places, a lot of industries, the financial industry, media, and also in government. In Sweden, if you buy a house, it is stored by a blockchain server. There's other things I can tell, but we have limited time, so you can ask me afterwards if you have something, maybe a different industry. And yeah.
Ларс, большое спасибо. Могли бы вы вот уточнить по поводу вашего, скажем так, вашего довода относительно того, что блокчейн используется только не для новых баз данных? Что вы имели в виду? То есть вы хотите сказать, что стартапы, которые основаны на блокчейн, они, в принципе, достаточно сложно будут развиваться или как?
A blockchain database is not more complicated than a normal database. It's just different. You don't have to be afraid of it because it's new. Actually, the technology is very well described. It's just a matter of using that instead of something else.
Спасибо.
Yeah, we have a question there.
Разрешите вопрос? Меня беспокоит юридическая сторона вопроса признания технологии блокчейн в юридически значимый документ. У нас в России сейчас есть трудность с этим. Мы не можем, законодатель наш не может точно определиться, во-первых, с сторонами по договору. Если стороны не совсем идентифицированы, например, они могут обозвать себя как угодно, они могут являться не теми людьми. И вторая проблема – это то, что блокчейн очень плохо вставляется в форму договора. То есть одна сторона обещает другой обязательства, другая, значит, взамен что-то. Даже сделку купи-продай, и то затруднительно сформировать в блокчейн. Подскажите, может быть, нам какие-нибудь юридические полезности, которые помогут нам решить задачу. Может, в Европе как-то это решили.
We have some regulations in Europe to solve that problem. And we have actually a lot of different laws which applies to most EU countries. We have the EU law to all 28 countries, and they are deployed in the local laws, but it has to be within that umbrella law from the EU. So if you know how it works in EU, you will probably be able to use it anywhere. But since it's local laws, it also has to be defined which law we are using. And of course, if two people agree, we do this and that's a deal. But we don't talk about which law should be used. You could think it would be Russian law, I could think it would be Danish law, or something else. So that is difficult when it's not decided. But when you make a proper contract, also a proper smart contract, then you will write somewhere in the contract which law should be used if you disagree with something or one party is not fulfilling what he should. So if you do the law work correct, the problems would be small. If you just make, like, say, verbal contracts, they're also difficult to prove that we agreed about this yesterday evening when we were having a beer. Is it still a contract today? So basically, do the work properly. Don't just use it because you have it, but use it when it's useful and meaningful. Then a lot of problems can be solved and can be executed automatically and fast. Yeah.
Спасибо, Ларс. Есть какие-то вопросы еще?
У меня вопрос по поводу технологии, которую вы сейчас описывали, Credit Stretcher. Работает ли она уже? Если да, то где? И вдруг она уже работает в России, мы не знаем. Вот. И еще один момент мне немножко напряг. Это кто или что распознает и обрабатывает фото документа за 2 минуты, и зачем тогда вообще писать на бумаге что-то, если все в принципе есть в блокчейне?
First question, Credit Stretcher is working in Denmark in beta test, and since it's under the Danish law, it is automatically also on the EU law. So it would pretty soon be available everywhere in Europe, and after that available in rest of the world. But that will be more steps from now. But I can tell that when we make the check for credibility for the end user, then we have a database of 40 million companies all over the world. So the credit check is already available in about 150 countries. So therefore we know it will be available in a lot of other countries. The second question about the documents. Of course, a contract, a complex contract, selling a company. That would be a long contract. And you won't put that in a normal smart contract. And normally when you have just one seller and one buyer, it doesn't make sense if a complicated contract should be put into a smart contract just to do it because you could. Where it should be used is if you want to create a new market for something. For instance, you have an oil tanker, and the market for oil tankers, that's limited, because if you need $100 million to buy an oil tanker, there's limited buyers, limited people who could buy, and therefore the price would be what is the market price between the people who can buy. But if you put it on a blockchain, then you will be able to sell 100,000th of oil tanker. Then it would be something where you could say, okay, I can legally transfer the ownership on 100,000th of an oil tanker to my neighbor, because I need $100 from him, and he has the money, and he wants to be owner of a little part of the oil tanker. So therefore, you can use the blockchain to sell in a safe way, transfer the ownership of that. And there can only be limited coins or tokens, what do you call them, to that oil tanker. So therefore, you know for sure that you had bought that part, you paid for it, delivery versus payment. So we don't have to go to the ship register and sign in, go to a notary, or make a lot of paperwork. You can just transfer it as a coin, not a Bitcoin, but a oil tanker coin.
Again, thank you for your speech. Very interesting. In the beginning, you told that the blockchain is a database shared by every participant. And the question is, what in fact saves the blockchain? The data or the hash or the link to the data?
So if I understand the question right, is, or maybe I should just be more precise about what a blockchain database, what it is. Because everybody can, if they are invited, see the blockchain data. Not everything behind from the button, but they can see this information is exactly what it states it should be. And there can be private blockchains and there can be public blockchains. And if you have Bitcoins, it's a public blockchain where you can actually see, can I get this Bitcoin or not? But it could also be a private blockchain, only for registered users. So it can be used, not even if you want to go to everywhere in the world, but it could be that you should register and saying, I am Mr. So-and-so, I live in Russia, I want to use Russian laws, and therefore I will be able to see this here if this and that is the case. So it all depends on how you make the blockchain. What is the rules programmed in this blockchain? Was that the... Or
not really, but I think we will discuss it just separately,
okay.
Not to lose time. Thank you.
Okay.
И мы переходим к следующей презентации.